Well, hundreds of students over at St. Cloud State University have high hopes for the future of legal weed. They've enrolled in cannabis courses, and as Caroline Cummings reports, the classes offered are growing.
Students are back on campus, shuffling to class at St. Cloud State University, but learning isn't limited to the classroom. Over the last year, more than 350 people have rolled up their sleeves to learn remotely about cannabis.
It is going wonderfully. It's surpassing every goal we ever set for it.
The cannabis online courses range from business to horticulture, 5 24-week non-credit certificate courses for people who want to tap into a budding industry set to launch next year.
Plans for the future are ongoing.
Abram Hedke, Executive Director of Professional and Continuing Education at the school, says most of the students enrolled are from Minnesota, hailing from 150 different cities and towns.
But we're seeing majority of our learners are 30 and older, which is demonstrating that people are interested in this for a second career, third career, or maybe it's I'm already in this industry, but I want to learn more and keep advancing within the industry I'm in.
St. Cloud State offered the classes on a rolling basis starting last fall, but they recently added workforce development classes, which are shorter and designed for the person who doesn't necessarily want to own a cannabis business, but might want to work in the industry.
I've always wanted to be a grower. I've always wanted to grow cannabis. I want to make a difference.
Christina Gangstead completed one of the most popular offerings, cannabis agriculture and horticulture. It focuses on growing techniques and the genetics of the plant, which can be grown at home right now in small amounts, but soon there will be industrial scale cultivation.
Just the knowledge of like nutrients, like what does cannabis actually need, where can I get my resources, what I actually need to look into, how well it would be like to grow indoor versus outdoor.
In St. Cloud, Caroline Cummings, WCCO News.